Hey guys, the dog days of summer are here, August. Hot times, all kinds of heat waves going on. The weather is kind of nuts. But you know something? Back when I was younger, one of the biggest and most fun things to do during the summer was head to the drive-in. I can't imagine the number of things I saw at a drive-in over the years when I was a little kid. And I want to bring some of those memories to you and also talk about a couple of films that you should be on the lookout for that talk about drive-ins. And also issue a challenge. And that's all coming up on this very special. Stay tuned.
Visit us often and enjoy our screen attractions in the comfort of your own car.
AVC TC Kirkham, the Kirkham Report. This is a little special I put together because, well, there's a movie coming out that I want you to see, and a movie that was out before that I want you to see, and they all connect to the same thing, drive-in movies. When I was a kid, we went to all kinds of drive-in movies. I saw horror films that my mom liked. I saw biker films that my stepfather liked. I saw stuff I shouldn't have seen by the time I was 10 at the drive-in. We went all over the place. There were tons of them around when I was little in the late 60s and early 70s. Nowadays, drive-ins aren't that prevalent. They've started a decline in the 1980s, and they've rebounded somewhat, but not enough. And so I'm going to bring some memories to you here, because my wife and I, before I started doing this show on my TKR Video Central channel, my wife and I have hosted a podcast since 2006 called Subject Cinema. Now, it's been on pretty much a hiatus since the beginning of the pandemic with a few odds and ends over the last couple of years, but it will be coming back in a new form in the near future. Movies were our passion. I mean, we went to the movies all the time. During the pandemic, our local theater, less than a mile away from here, sold out. Now there's an Amazon warehouse being built there. So now we don't have a real close theater to get to. And we don't particularly like watching current films on streaming. We'd rather see them on the big screen. If we had a drive-in, if I had a car, I'd be there all the time because I used to love going to the drive-in. And I have a couple of movies I want to tell you about that'll make you love idea of going to the drive-in as well. We had the opportunity to interview the director of both of these films back in when the first one came out in 2012 or 2013. Her name is April Wright, and I'm going to tell you a lot about a couple of her films and a third one also as we get into it. But for right now, let's flash back a decade and take a look at the drive-ins at the time.
After World War II, the United States flourished, with returning soldiers buying cars and starting families. It was the baby boom, and family togetherness was portrayed as the national ideal. Americans took to the road like never before. Cars became status symbols, and being mobile was the ultimate expression of freedom. Route 66 was the mother road. Hotels with neon popped up everywhere. But the biggest roadside attraction was a definitive American icon known as the drive-in movie theater. By 1958, over 5,000 drive-ins dotted the nation's landscape. That'd be like taking every blockbuster video store in the country and imagining it were a drive-in. You still wouldn't have as many drive-ins as there were at their peak. Small towns that to this day don't have an indoor theater once had a drive-in. Bigger cities such as Dallas, Fort Worth had almost 50 of them. It was the thing to do on a Saturday night. The massive attractions were a roadside Hollywood with large neon screen towers and elaborate marquees. There were playgrounds.
Going Attractions, the definitive story of the American drive-in, is a great, great film. We saw this when it first came out and immediately hooked up with its director, April Wright, for an interview, and we've worked with April on several other projects too, including a whole summer of drive-in themed stuff in 2016. This movie is amazing because it traces the history of how the drive-in was created and all of the different types of drive-ins that came in, and also the steep and steady decline of the drive-in theater since the 1970s. April visited over 100 drive-ins in America for this documentary, and it shows. Her love for the art form shows here. I really, really enjoyed seeing some of the outlandish ideas, like the hotel with a built-in drive-in, or the type where each car had its own movie screen. There were a lot of different prototypes back in the 40s and 50s. And it was the rise of the 50s and the teen flicks and the horror flicks and the atomic age that really brought the drive-ins into their full fruition from the mid-1950s through the mid-1970s. And you get to see a lot of those classic drive-ins in this movie. It is fantastic. The different types of movies, how they got started, where they went, and how long it took to get there, and why drive-ins suddenly started losing favor with the American public. It's not a pretty story, and drive-ins are a lot of fun. I mean, my memories of going to the drive-in, I remember going to at least 5 or 6 different drive-ins over the course of my first 10 years of life. When I lived in Washington, we went to the North Cedar Drive-In for horror that my mom liked in Spokane. We went to one in, I think it was Dishman or Opportunity, for the biker movies that my stepfather Frank liked. All of the family films were also at a drive-in, also either in Dishman or Opportunity, I forget which. And then when we moved to Ohio, we were regulars at the Valley Drive-In. It was fairly close to our house. And when we lived in Utica, we were also close to the one in Mount Vernon. Saw tons of films at those drive-ins. I remember the intermission shows. I remember the pre-shows. I only got to be on the playground once. My mom actually let me do it once. Those days were fun. You used to go into the snack bar and you could hear the movie and you would get your soda and your popcorn, or like us a few times, you snuck it in from outside. But I remember first seeing the Poseidon Adventure on a drive-in screen, and that was a movie that turned me into a disaster movie fan. I remember seeing Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory on the drive-in screen in Mount Vernon when I was 6 years old and loving it. I remember going to the Valley Drive-In when I got older. When we returned to Ohio when I was 18, the Valley was the only one still open. The Heath Drive-In had closed by that point. And we saw Airplane and Popeye and Grease 2 in that theater. Grease 2, the little said about the better. Come to think of it, Popeye, the less said the better too. But Airplane was a riot. And that was my aunt's idea. There's something magical about drive-ins, and April has captured that magic in this wonderful documentary from 2012, featuring classic drive-ins from all over the country, and it really is worth a chance to take and see. If you have kids that have never been to the drive-in, this is the perfect thing to show them. It will show them what going to a drive-in was like, and why, if you have the opportunity to go to a drive-in now, it's a magical event. There is life still in drive-ins, but this film, the first film, is about history. You can check out Going Attractions, the definitive history of the American drive-in movie, for free with commercials on TUBI television, or TUBI television, however you pronounce it, or you can rent it from $2.99 to $6.99 on most major streaming services like YouTube, Amazon Prime, and Vudu. If you're a fan of the movies and a fan of drive-ins and feel a little bit nostalgia about it, I think you should do it, because it's definitely worth the time and effort to do it. When the pandemic started, drive-ins suddenly came back into vogue again. People could go to the drive-in and not have to worry about social distancing except with their own family. There wasn't a lot of product coming out. It was mostly classic stuff, but the drive-ins did experience a slight resurgence. Whether or not they can keep it up is the subject of April's latest film, Back to the Drive-In.
Hi everyone, this is Ben coming to you live here at the Harvest Moon. As you can see, our weather right now is actually pretty fantastic, and should be a really nice night for drive-in movies.
We're very fortunate in this COVID-19 issue to have been, for the most part, permitted to continue to operate.
March of 2020, all of a sudden we were geniuses because everything had turned into drive-in.
Now that everything's back open again, they're not here.
Driving isn't the top of the choice anymore.
We're just trying to keep heads above water and keep rolling right now.
We don't have to wear face masks, we don't have to have 50% capacity, but then there's other problems.
Usually we'd show double features. We're understaffed, so we can't do double features right now.
And the supply chain challenges have been real. I've never seen anything like this.
It could be the worst.
Back to the Drive-In is the wonderful story of 7 theaters pushing forward after the pandemic to try and keep going. There's one in the Buffalo area, one in the Catskills, a couple in Texas, one in California, and one in, I think it's Virginia or Maryland, and a couple other ones, plus some smaller features on several other drive-ins, including the Skyview Cruise Inn in Lancaster, Ohio, my old hometown, in the end credits. It's the story of the slight resurgence that happened because of the pandemic, and whether or not these drive-ins will be able to continue. Some of them are fairly new. Field of Dreams in Ohio is actually in someone's backyard. It was a dream come true for the couple running it. There have been other ones out there as well that have been constructed in the 2000s. One in Texas, I fell in love with the one in Texas, one of the ones in Texas that she focused on here, with its outdoor area and you know, roof over it and outdoor snack bar and really crazy stuff. It's a wonderful feeling. It made me want to start, hell, it made me want to open a drive-in. I don't have the money, but the idea of owning a drive-in is one of the coolest ideas I can ever think of. If I could combine it with a record store of some sort and a studio for podcasting and recording, I'd be tickled. I wish I had the money to renovate and bring in a new drive-in that helped re-energize the drive-in community, because they really need it. Even though there has been resurgences over the past 20 years, April's new film Back to the Drive-In really focuses on how it's not always easy. You gotta sometimes go from week to week. But most of these drive-ins, all of them family operated for the most part, it's a labor of love. And that's what makes it work. Drive-ins are really something. The one in the Catskills has a gourmet menu, homemade cookies, people who love working there and who really enjoy running the place, and a loyal clientele that comes back for movies over and over again. And you get that at every different place. Back to the Drive-In is a fantastic film, and it is coming out nationwide on Friday, August 13th. She had her sneak preview on Drive-In Day in June, and it will be making the streaming services this fall. But if you get a chance, check out Back to the Drive-In. I like it just as much, if not a tad better, than April's first film, and because it made me realize what life is like when you can be a part of a community that considers a drive-in movie an integral part of their lives. That's something special that most people don't have anymore, and it's well worth finding. Back to the Drive-In opens nationwide on August 13th. I urge you to check it out. You won't regret it.
Refresh yourself. It's intermission time. The concession stand is open and ready to serve you.
are magic. You go into a theater, and I don't care if it's small little local one in your hometown or something as grand as Radio City Music Hall. When you're in the music hall and the lights go down, it becomes intimate and fascinating and magical.
So many people identify movies with some of the best times of their lives. They remember their first dates, they remember their first time out with their family, the first time they went to see a movie about being a doctor, being a politician, being an astronaut.
A few years ago, April released the second film in her Going Attractions line. It's called Going Attractions, the definitive story of the American movie palace, and it is absolutely fantastic as well, with historians and everybody going in and looking at some of the true history of the movie palace and how they came to be and why they are also a dying breed today. I'm going to have links to that and everything else in the show notes below. Drive-in movies are an amazing experience, and I have a challenge for you right here, right now. I don't have a vehicle anymore, so unfortunately, I can't get to the drive-in. Massachusetts only has two, the Minden Twin in the center of the state, and one of the movies featured in Back to the Drive-In, the Wellfleet Drive-In in Wellfleet, down on the Cape. We have no way to get there. But I'm asking you to take my drive-in challenge. If you live within driving distance of a drive-in, I challenge you to go and have fun one night, take your video recorder, document your trip, and talk about your local drive-in. I will give you airtime on PNR Network's shows here on TKR Video Central, and if you like, I can also provide you airtime on PNR Networks itself. Our whole point, to get you to go out and experience the wonders of a drive-in movie. Just because it's 2022 doesn't mean that drive-ins should cease to exist. They definitely should not. They're an important part of every community they're in, and they need your help to continue growing. In the show notes, you'll find a couple of sites where you can go and search out your local drive-in by zip code. If you live within 50 miles of one, I would say take a trip and really have fun. Go, enjoy, film, let us know about it, and we'll show it for you right here if you like, or you can send us a link when you post your video. So take the TKR Drive-In Challenge today, or sometime this month before the drive-in season ends. That's usually, if you're in the northern part of half of the country, usually sometime in September or October. And don't forget to drop me a line or leave a comment on this video and let me know you've posted something. I just want to make sure that the drive-ins continue on. If I had the ability, I'd love to own one. And I honestly think after watching these movies, you might want to own one too, along with a record store or a radio station, of course. For the Kirkham Report, I'm TC Kirkham. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this special. Ciao, baby.
Visit us often and enjoy our screen attractions in the comfort of your own car.